When I started to train Muay Thai, one of the things that kept coming up for me was this Chinese proverb. It says, stand like mountain, move like water. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie, your host for the No Bullshit Spirituality podcast. I talk a lot about creating the life that you love, choosing what it is that you want, dreaming big so that you can go after all of this. But one of the essential ingredients that we need in order to be able to do this is power. So today I'm going to be talking about what power is. I'm going to be merging two stories to give you a live example of how the difference between resonance and force play out in creating a different type of power and how one is more beneficial than the other for you, so that you can actually start to do this thing about dreaming big, seeing potential, seeing possibilities, and creating the life that you want consciously. I do have a little bit of a croaky voice today because it is 5:52 a.m. There are thunderstorms going on outside, so it's pretty dark out there. And why am I recording at 5:52 a.m.? Because I have to do this before the planes start. I live in Chiang Mai, and in Chiang Mai, it's very, very difficult to escape the flight path of the planes. So they start at 6:30. So I'm really hoping to get this done before all of that. And it's just started to rain really, really hard. So if there's background noise, I apologize for that. All right, so let's get going. So in episode 3, I talked to you about how Muay Thai helped me become more of a spiritual and more of a powerful woman. When I started to train Muay Thai 6 years ago, whatever it was, one of the things that kept coming up for me was this Chinese proverb, not in Chinese because I don't speak Chinese, but in the translation of English, it says, stand like mountain, move like water. And this was so prominent for me at this time in terms of what I was learning about how to become good at Muay Thai, that I actually got it translated into Thai and I had it tattooed on my arm. If you're watching the video, you can see here. So move like mountain. No, we don't move like mountain. So stand like mountain, move like water. What does this actually mean? So it describes how human beings are best served in order to deal with the struggles and the stresses of life. We need both elements. We need the mountain, but we also need the water. We need the unshakable and unwavering confidence and poise and strength of a mountain, so that we cannot be moved in our conviction, in our boundaries, in our intention, what it is that we are striving for, what it is that we want to achieve. But if all you are is mountain, then you rely on brute force. You rely on coming at it with a fixed mindset, with a fixed body, if you like. And this alone is only going to produce force. And it's not going to enable you to be successful as much as if you were to adopt the flow like water. Now, if you think about the characteristics of a mountain versus the characteristics of a river, let's say, water, when it is flowing, it is able to adapt, it is able to pivot, it can change, it can overcome, it can flow over, under, around, it can even flow through. And when you adopt the maneuverability of water, when you come at life, at stresses, with this ability to have your goal, know where it is that you need to end up, and then get there at the quickest, most easiest way, the saying, the path of least resistance, then you are adapting to the energy, you're adapting your energy in the way that it is required in order to achieve the goal in the most efficient way. But if all you are is water, then you're floppy. I can't think of another word right now. You won't have as much power as you would have if you adopted the two. So in life, we need to be mountain, but we need to marry that with water. And when we have both, when we are able to bring both into a situation That is when we truly succeed, because we work with resonance and we increase the amount of power than we would if we came at it just with brute force. Now, what is this thing called resonance? Resonance is the type of energy that you have, the type of energy that you adopt. And if you are pushing and pushing and pushing against something with the wrong type of energy, it's not necessarily going to work. We need to adapt our energy so that we can match the situation with the energy that is going to give you the outcome or the impact that you desire. If I think about a real life example, let's say you have somebody that you want somebody to do something for you and they don't want to do it. If you just keep screaming and shouting and pushing and demanding, i.e. the mountain, then they are least likely to do what it is that you want or need them to do. If you change your energy and meet them and match them and adapt to maybe, and this is water, right? Maybe to show them how the outcome can benefit them, how their actions can impact positively, then they are more likely to do what it is that you want or need them to do. So this is a very simplified example of how coming at something with brute force doesn't necessarily get you the outcome you want versus coming at it with flow and adaptability and being able to change and pivot. Now, this is exactly what I saw in Muay Thai. In any martial arts, I'm sure, if you come at something with pure brute force, i.e. the mountain, if you are stiff and rigid, then you aren't actually going to produce that much power. If you are relaxed and you breathe and you have the ability to pivot and to flow and to move and to be agile with grace, if you mix that with the strength that you have and your ability to stand strong and have confidence in who you are and what you can achieve, then you will have more power because you have an elevated sense of resonance. And when you come at Muay Thai like that, with strength and courage and conviction and trust, as well as coming at it with the ability to pivot, to move, to be agile, to be graceful, and to allow the energy, when you move your limbs, allow the energy to move where you need it to go rather than being stiff and rigid, you increase your amount of power and therefore you become stronger because you are merging the two skills. Now, it's obvious why we would want more power in something like a martial art, because we want to win the fight, right? We want to overcome our opponent. But what on earth does this mean about life? Why do we want more power in life? Power is metaphysical, meaning that it's not necessarily something you can see or measure, but it's absolutely something that we have, and the more power we have, the more difference that it can make, as long as you're using that power in the right way. When we have our power, this energy enables us to see potential, see possibility, have more faith and belief and trust in ourselves. Therefore, we can dream because we can see what is available to us. And when we have this power, we can also follow through on that and we can create. We can see what it is that we want to create for ourselves and maintain the conviction and the action and the resilience needed in order to bring it into manifestation. We can also withstand the trials and tribulations that come with creating what it is that we want, because we have the power to do so. And just because we are creating something, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a rosy path, right? The whole point of creation and manifestation is that sometimes we might come up against challenge. And so we need the strength and we need the power to overcome that challenge so that we can keep going. Not all manifestation is going to be a struggle. Don't get me wrong. Some of the creations, we're also here to have fun and we're here to make life easy for ourselves. So not everything has to be hard or a struggle. That is not what I mean. But what I mean is when you do come up against those challenges, we need power. We want power. And we also need power to inject into the fun aspect of life, the ease, the beauty, the joy. If you don't have power, then everything is a struggle. And I saw this play out beautifully the other day. I went for a sunrise hike and I come across this waterfall. And it was a soft, gentle waterfall. It wasn't so high, but I could see that this water was trickling down over the rocks, and the rocks were quite flat, and it had such determination, but yet it was soft and graceful, and it was flowing with ease. It knew exactly where it wanted to go, this water. It had its eyes set on its destination, and it was flowing, trickling with such ease and grace. Nothing was going to stop it. It didn't need to force itself. It didn't need to push against anything. It didn't need to bring in any more welly than it already had, because it was just flowing. It had momentum, it had volume, and it had impact. And it just fell into this beautiful cascading cacophony that looked like fireworks, gentle fireworks. It didn't need persuasion. It didn't need convincing. It just utterly knew. And it was flowing happily before coming into this explosion of joy. And this is what reminded me of power. When we work with resonance rather than force, we can flow with ease, effortlessness, joy, and still get what we want without having to bring in the brutality or the force or the aggression. And as I said, it's very much like what I was learning in Muay Thai. Power comes from that unshakable foundation, that absolute knowing and trust and belief and expectation of the outcome. And you get that with the ability to pivot and move and flow without the need for aggression or force or brutality. Knowing your intention is paramount. If you don't know where you want to project your energy, if you don't know which direction you need to put your focus, then your water will end up flowing in all sorts of directions and you'll never achieve anything. I mean, you would never get that beautiful cacophony of soft, gracious fireworks. You'll just get this weak trickle of everything going everywhere. And when we want to create, that's not impactful. So your intention, knowing what you want to do, knowing what you want to become, knowing what you want to create, having this future vision is so important. So what on earth does all of this mean for you? Well, there's two things. First of all, there's the thing about, well, how do you gain your power back? How do you increase your amount of power? And then once you have your power, what on earth do you do with it? Let's talk about the power first. If you had, this is just an example, right? If you had 100 energies, and each of these energies is a piece of power. If you had 100 and you gave 50 of those away to somebody, and we give our power away in all sorts of ways and means. For example, not choosing, allowing somebody else to choose for you, that's giving away your power. Allowing somebody to step over your boundaries is another way of giving away power. Doing what somebody tells you to do, even though you don't want to do it, is giving away your power. Somebody might also take your power. They might manipulate you. They might lie to you. They might purposely drain you of your power. You know, those people where you have a conversation with them and you feel like utter shit as a result. They've drained your power. So we have to take this power back, because if we've given away 50 or somebody has taken away 50, then we only have 50 left to see what we're capable of and therefore create it. Whereas if we take our power back, then we have 100 of those pieces of power, 100 energies, and therefore we've got 100 to dream and to create what it is that we want. And the first step is recognizing how you've given your power away or who has taken it from you. And then you have to take it back. And I describe this process. I describe more about how you lose your power, how you can take it back. And I give you the tools to do so. One of my courses, and I've put the links down in the show notes so that you can gain access to that, because this is critical. If you don't have power, you cannot see potential and possibility. You can't see what you're capable of doing. And therefore you create half-hearted dreams or goals. You limit yourself of what it is that you can become, of what you can experience in life. And none of us want to live a half-hearted life. We all want to have as much of everything that we want as possible. We all want to achieve our dreams. We all want to live our purpose. You need power to do that. And the other thing then is to consider the difference between where you're showing up in life with force versus maybe too much weakness, and how can you blend the two? So the first question that you can ask yourself is, with something that you are trying to create or change or transform, where are you showing up with resistance or brute force? Where are you trying to continuously push and shove? And on the contrary, you can also ask yourself the question, where are you being too weak? Where are you too fluid? Where are you too floppy? Where are you just showing up half-hearted and allowing other people to step over you, or not really showing up with conviction and honesty, being half-hearted with things, being too fluid with no solid direction? And to answer these two questions, it's going to take a little bit of going inside, a little bit of honesty. So you might want to sit with those for a little while. And the answers might not come straight away either. I mean, for some of you, as you're listening, you'll be going, oh God, yep, that's me. Nah. But sometimes we don't want to admit these things to ourselves because it's painful to admit. But when you do, when you become aware, then you can take responsibility for how you choose to then change that for yourself. And with that naturally comes power. So how on earth do you create the balance between the two? Because we do need the two elements. We do need the mountain and we need the water to increase our amount of power, to come at something with the right resonance, to match the situation where it is, so that we can create with more ease and effortlessness. As I said, step number one is you absolutely need to have a future vision. If you don't know what it is that you are trying to create, then your water is going to trickle in all sorts of directions. We need to know, or you need to know, where to put your energy, where to direct your flow. And you're only going to do that if you know this thing that you're trying to create, if you can see or feel what it is that you want to have and experience. And when you've created that future vision, and this is why power is important, because you can't create an aligned vision if you don't have power, because you won't believe that you can create anything. So therefore, your vision will either be non-existent or it will be half-hearted. So we take our power back so that we can dream bigger, so that we can create a more aligned and bigger vision, so that we then know where to set our intention. We set the intention so that we can direct our flow, so that we can direct our power, so that we can create the correct thing. And then when all this shit comes at us, we've got the power and we know what it is that we're trying to create because we've set our intention. We know where our energy is flowing, and then we can resist those. So step number one is to create that future vision and set the intention. Step number two, and again, you need power for this, is to start to take the right action in order to create that. Now, these actions that you need to take might be scary, and they might be easy. You're going to have a mix of both. But again, if you have your power, then taking the bold action is going to be more of a courageous act. You'll have much more welly behind you to do it, rather than seeing what it is that you need to do and being too scared to do it. And there is an important difference between those two. And once you start to take action, all of these emotions are going to come up. Sometimes these emotions are going to be helpful, but sometimes they're also going to be limiting, debilitating. And when they are debilitating, when they are our own limitations, when they are our subconscious or unconscious blocks that are stopping us, again, it's so important that we've set our intention, because when these come up, we know what we're trying to create. So we have more gusto in being willing to overcome them. And when those emotions come up, we need to have a process in place in order to help us overcome them. And this is something that we call welcoming, allowing the emotions to arise no matter what they are, and allowing that energy, because that's what an emotion is, allowing that energy to flow freely without judgment. We just observe that energy, let it flow until it has gone, until that energy or until that emotion has passed, and then it turns into something else. Now, this is a skill. And this is what I help people with, the ability to welcome the emotions that are trapped, that are suppressed, that you didn't want to feel the first time round and that is continuously stopping you from creating what you want, helping people to go through the process of welcoming them without judgment and letting them pass. And then step number 3 is, as we continue to take action, observe and welcome the limitations, then we surrender. Just like the water surrendered on its way down over the rocks. It knew its direction, it knew where it wanted to go, and it just flowed. Same with us. We flow. We surrender to the how. Yes, we have a fixed idea of what it is that we want to create, but how on earth do we do it? We don't necessarily know. We don't need to know. We have to relish and be okay with not knowing. All we need is the conviction to know what it is that we want. And when we surrender to the how, doesn't mean we give up and we just put our feet up and we sit back and then just let the universe decide. No, we have to continuously take action, but we take conscious action in the direction of where we want to go. And then as situations arise, as people come into our lives, opportunities appear, challenges appear, this is where we need to adapt, flow and water even more. We learn to pivot and adapt. We need to shift our energy into the new direction that is being asked of us so that we can continue to aim towards what it is that we are trying to create. And we continuously observe, we continuously pivot and surrender, but we keep that future vision in our sights, knowing that that is our end goal. And again, to do all of that, we need power, we need strength, we need courage, conviction, and also the courage and the strength to change, to pivot, to adapt. So hopefully I've described to you the difference between force and resonance in creating or having the power to bring into our lives what it is that we want. And I've given you a step-by-step process of how we do that. Now, what is missing for you, possibly? Power. How do you recognize where to take your power back, where you've given it away or it's been taken from you? And to welcome with enthusiasm and appreciation and non-judgment all of the emotions that have been suppressed and that are currently blocking you. We need to welcome those, allow them to come up and release. Now, if you need help with either of those processes, I've put a link to helping you recognize where you've let your power go and how to take that back. And if you want support with going to the places that we fear the most, those suppressed emotions, the trapped trauma, in the show notes, there is a link on how you can work with me on a one-to-one. And something else that is available to you is this waterfall that I keep talking about. I actually recorded this and I have created a meditation journey where you are able to see this flow and this power that this waterfall has created. You're able to receive the power from the waterfall at the same time as being guided by me on a meditative self-reflection journey to help you see and feel and work your way through adapting your resonance to enable you to get what it is that you want. So the link to that meditation is also in the show notes. So I encourage you to go and take a look at that. And as always, if you found anything that I've shared with you today useful or interesting, then please do let me know. You can contact me. I'm always up for hearing what you've got to say. Please share this to somebody else who you think will find it of benefit. And whatever platform you are on, please give me a like, a tick, a thumbs up, a ding dong, or whatever it is. I don't know what's there. Give me a subscribe so that you know every time that I release a new podcast episode, and spread the word. It's been an absolute delight to be able to share this experience with you today. I do hope you go to the show notes and download all of those things, and I will look forward to speaking to you in the next podcast. Have a beautiful day ahead.